Hey guys, welcome to St. John's Lutheran Church here in Napa, California. This is a beautiful traditional style worship sanctuary here, but they wanted to update it with the latest and greatest technology for sound and video. So I'm excited to tell you about this integration project we just wrapped up here at Churchfront, deploying a brand new PA system. We've got new LED screens. We did a new rack build, and then we have a super clean workstation setup at front of house. The goal was to update, massively improve audio video quality, and keep it super simple for their volunteers here to operate on a week-to-week basis. So make sure you watch this whole video to the end, because I'm sure some of these solutions that we implemented here could come in handy at your church. And if you are a Churchfront client already, if you are considering different design options, this is a good one to check out to see what's available for you as you work with our team to implement these solutions. The PA system we installed at this church is by Fulcrum Acoustic, and we deployed a few of their coaxial type speakers. What's great about these speakers, the ones that you see above me, it kind of gives you an idea of the size. These are the CCX 1226, so they're 12-inch speakers. And because these are coaxial speakers, the tweeter and the woofer are both centered in that box, making them super compact. And in a space like this where they get beautiful stained glass, you don't want to really disrupt the aesthetic of the space. The smaller, the better, but they still have plenty of power and coverage to cover all of the seats here in the congregation. So we have two 12-inch speakers towards the front of the congregation, and then we have some fill speakers back here. These are the 8-inch models of the same speakers. So super compact, and then I was blown away by the sound. I was a little concerned that we weren't gonna be putting acoustic treatment in this space. You can tell, still pretty live. We still have over 3 seconds of reverb, but I was blown away still by the quality and control we have over the mix with these speakers, because they're just hyper precise at where they are throwing the sound, and we're just hearing the full spectrum of audio. I compare it to when I've been in a nice premium studio somewhere listening to nice premium speakers. Like, that's what it sounds like here at scale in this space. If it were my personal preference, we would still deploy some acoustic panels in this space. But again, when you have an organ, when they have choir, they still want the life that's in the room. But overall, super impressed with the result of this Fulcrum Acoustic PA in this situation. This is another Fulcrum Acoustic speaker. It's a subwoofer, and it's a 18-inch subwoofer. Blown away by how this guy fills the space. Even just having a single subwoofer here for the entire system. They might add on an additional one to the other side, but for kind of the aesthetics of not having to have another subwoofer on the floor over there, and for budget reasons, it was good to start with one here. And again, this thing fills the entire room with some amazingly clear bass. And then here in the lobby, of course, we have additional smaller 6-inch Fulcrum speakers to cover the lobby area as people walk in. We were also able to tie in the PA system to the outdoor speakers they have, a nursing mother's room. That's something really to consider when you're upgrading your PA at your church. Don't think about just the main space, but what are all the other auxiliary areas? And in this situation, we were able to retain some of the existing equipment and just tie it in with our new DSP and amplifiers. Speaking of, when it comes to the DSP and amp setup here, we are using a Jupiter DSP. It's by Symmetrics, and then down here we have the Unica ATEM amplifier for all of the new PA speakers, and then we have some existing amps we used for some of those auxiliary speakers that I was talking about earlier. So the Unica, super powerful DSP and amplifier, lots of capability in it. It's also Dante enabled, and that's another huge reason why the system sounds so great in this space, is it was specifically tuned for the space. So let's head on over to the tech booth. Let's talk about the mixing and in-ear system. And for this, I'm gonna hand it over to Luke. He's the project manager for this setup.
So here at St. John's Lutheran Church, we deployed an SQ7 with a Dante expansion card, 64 in, 64 out. And we are also using the 48x16 digital snake up at the stage. So the reason for this upgrade really came from maxing out a previous older generation console and not having the flexibility and the work experience of really getting the best sound from their sources on stage. So the SQ is a great workhorse. We've got all of the inputs from stage patched in here, as well as Dante from all of our workstation computers and to most of our workstation computers, as well as virtual sound check all over the network. So this really creates a lot of simplicity, keeps the workstations clean so you don't have a bunch of audio interfaces laying around with analog cable, and it really makes it easy when troubleshooting down to your network so that you don't have to worry about what cable is going bad. It's just one network interface with the console. Pairing along with the Allen & Heath SQ7, we paired it with a GX4816, which provides 48 channels of input and 16 outputs. We're also pairing it with the MEU hub, which powers their brand new ME500 in-ear monitor solution. With the ME500s, you can get 16 channels of audio into a personal monitor mixing solution so that everybody can have their own mix. You also have the ability to save a preset in here so that you can recall your mix week to week. If other people are using different units, you can just press a button, recall your settings from the last time that you used that specific unit. And these units even provide a USB port so you can back up your settings for easy deployment to another mixing unit or to recall your mix from a previous session.
Let's talk about some instruments we deployed here. We got the EFNOTE drum kit. It's an electric drum kit. You guys have seen videos of that on our channel. It's perfect for this type of space because number one, they're actually quasi-portable here. They need to be able to clear everything out easily, and an electric drum kit makes that just very simple to do. And then they also need to be conscious of acoustics. Electric drum kit is a much better fit for this space because it's not producing a bunch of stage volume, and it makes mixing out there super easy for the person out front of house. They're not fighting against a real drum set. So it looks like a real drum set. Probably most people in this room, when they come in, they probably think it's a real drum set, but it's not. The EFNOTE samples sound incredible, and it's easy to dial in to the mix, and it's easy to set up and tear down, which right now they tore it down. It's not right here, but I had some footage that you saw of it earlier. Also not here right now, but we did deploy this as a part of their system, is the Nord Stage 3 keyboard. It's just a premium keyboard, and their pastor is actually an amazing keyboardist, and it sounds incredible with the system. We also upgraded a lot of their DI boxes in this setup to radial DI boxes, Rupert Neve DI boxes. Again, if you are a renovation project, if that's what you're going through, it's a good idea if you're getting like brand new stage boxes and PA systems, you want to make sure that you also are not going to be sacrificing any quality at the point of where the source is captured. So a DI box, having a quality one, it's always a good idea to upgrade, especially if you're using some older ones.
In this project, one of the goals in upgrading the microphone capturing experience was to get something that was simple, clean, and efficient. So we went with the Shure ULX-D system. The ULX-D system also has the capability to use these charging bays. I know a lot of times in the past, wireless mics, we're just swapping out rechargeable batteries, we're putting in fresh AA's every week, and so that can become a headache and a huge expense in the long run. So these charging bays allow for us to just pick up the unit. They come and you'll put a Shure rechargeable battery in this one time, and then week to week you can just dock it and it will actually charge right from the dock back here. You can see the green light will come on to indicate that it's charging. And one of the other reasons I love this system for charging is that these charging docks daisy chain power, and so you don't have to run a bunch of power cables from the back of these docks. It just requires one cable for 4 bays at one time. So this can become scalable as your team grows, as your microphone needs grow, and can just integrate right into your system really easily. Welcome to the rack room. So this is kind of the space in the church at St. John's that the old rack was. So we'll show you some before footage of the previous smaller rack and kind of how we decided to upgrade the rack and make sure that every piece of equipment that we deployed is in a great new housing for future decades of ministry. So right now you're looking at a Lowell rack, and Lowell's great because it comes with a lot of accessory options to make cable management easy, blanks, different kind of sequencers that you can deploy with it. And we have this rack here on casters, so this actually can move in and out really easily. We can turn it, we can move it as we need to service it in the future. If we wanted to add gear or adjust gear deployment, we could pull this out and it just rolls out on wheels, which make it really accessible. So starting at the top, let's do kind of a little rack tour. We've got our sequencer at the very top, which is making it easy for volunteers to come in, and in the morning, they just have to push one switch. It will power everything on in sequence so that you're not getting those loud pops and booms from your speaker system, and everything turns on in the appropriate order. We've got PDUs throughout the rack. So this is what most of the gear is plugged into to kind of distribute power and also offer some surge protection. As we move down, you'll see our Novastar processor for the LED wall from Altitude LED. As we move down the rack, we've got a nice little shelf that houses our ATEM 1ME broadcast video switcher, and that allows them to get a good clean cut between camera angles for their live stream. Next to that is a remote NUC that we can use to access anything that is networkable in the rack at any time. So our team, from the comfort of our own home in the future, if something were to go awry and we needed to service or support St. John's remotely, we can tap into this NUC, and then we can see all the things that are networked. We can talk to the network switch, and we can configure things as needed and as they scale. Moving on down, one of our favorite deployments here is the Sonnet xMac mini server, which allows for an expansion card or a graphics card on the back, where we've deployed the Decklink Duo for their different stage outputs, confidence monitor, live stream lower thirds, right out of the back of the unit. And then there's a Mac Mini right in the front of this, which just allows, again, for the workstation to stay a lot cleaner when the computer is deployed in the back of the rack. Then we have the Sonnet Rack Mac Mini, which houses two computers, two Mac Minis. The first one is going to be our front of house Mac Mini. That's going to be used for virtual sound check, things like Planning Center, Spotify pre-service playlist, monitoring our microphones through Wireless Workbench. And then our broadcast Mac is running the Wirecast software that they use for encoding their stream to their live stream week to week. So these are really neat, tidy, provides USB inputs on the front so that you have easy access to tap in accessories if need be, but it keeps all the cables in the back very neat and compact. Moving down the rack, we hit our KVM shelf, and KVMs will show you a little bit of how we deploy these, but this is really what is the brainchild of this design. Keeping our workstations really neat allows us to run a USB cable from the back of each computer into the KVM units and a network cable to the other end of the receivers of the KVMs. That's all the cabling that you would need, is a network cable to connect the transmitter KVM and the receiver KVM at the workstation destination. You would need a USB cable to go in the back of each computer, and an HDMI cable so that you can see it on a monitor and configure the machine appropriately. But super clean setup, very easy, and a minimal deployment here, where in the past you'd have to have the computers at the workstations themselves. You risk dongles going bad, but being deployed in a rack will really prolong the life of the fixtures themselves. Continuing down the rack is our Netgear M4250 AV switch. These switches are newer on the market, and they are amazing. They're so powerful for what you can do with different VLAN deployments, and all of the ease of use comes with that, where they've got pre-configured profiles for things like Dante, Shure devices, local area networks. And so we have this Netgear switch, and then all of the ports are in the back. And so you can run all the network cable, again, keeping the front of this rack very clean and not intimidating for anybody to use or service. We have a little patch bay here with a couple auxiliary inputs for if somebody were to network a computer in. These keystone jacks are already patched in the back of the network switch for future use and scalability. Moving on down the rack, this is where our microphones are also housed. The Shure ULX-D microphones and belt packs that you saw earlier all stem from these units here. Now, these are Dante enabled microphones, and so what's coming out on the backside of these microphones is a network cable that goes into our Netgear switch, and that hits a Dante port, which then puts these microphones on the Dante network. So we can see that in Dante controller. And the cool thing about the ULX-D system is that it also will send network control data over the same Dante port. And what that means is that we can actually monitor battery health of every individual unit. We can adjust gain and naming schemes for these wireless microphones right from our front of house machine all over the network. So these are a super clean, very compact, very powerful, robust microphone system that is really easy to deploy and very simple. Not a lot of cables, not a lot of clutter when it comes to the back of the system. We also have 2 RF antenna cables coming out of the back of these so that they get great distribution of RF signal from our RF venue architectural antenna in the room. The rest of this down here is what Jake already covered, DSP amplifiers from the previous systems, and as always, a nice battery backup for an uninterruptible power supply.
Now we're back in the tech booth, and this is an amazingly well-constructed tech booth that really fits the aesthetic of the space. The company who built the actual surfaces and the wall around the booth did an excellent job. Jacob, who's the worship tech volunteer who's been interfacing with us through the project, he did a good job overseeing this as well. So I love the simplicity where you have this fairly deep surface. This is probably, I don't know, over between 3 to 4 feet deep. So it really has plenty of space underneath it, and it makes it easy for cable management. And then they've got the slanted surface here going around the top of the wall. So nobody's gonna put stuff here. If they do, it's just gonna fall off, right? So we learned that trick from, I think, Wellspring Church a couple of years ago. So we've got 3 workstations. I would say this is probably the most common workstation setup that we're seeing with a lot of clients we work with, even the churches that I serve at myself, where you've got an audio workstation, Pro Presenter workstation, and then you've got a broadcast video workstation. And keep in mind, in this setup, they're gonna be sending a matrix mix for their live stream mix, so they don't need a dedicated broadcast room to produce a great mix. And I'll emphasize that you can do that, especially when you have an amazing PA that's well tuned, so that whatever you're producing here at front of house can translate very well online. You might have to add a little bit of reverb and add some limiting to that mix, but it can still sound super clear and super full. So this is why I love KVMs so much. KVM stands for keyboard, video, mouse, I think. But basically it's bringing all those connections from the computers. Luke talked about the transmitters on the other side. And then this is the receiver. So these are the AV Access 1080p dual HDMI KVM extenders. You have to use unshielded cable to make that connection. Don't use shielded cable. And then you have your HDMI output going into the monitor. And then you've got USB peripheral connections here as well for keyboard, mouse, Stream Deck. You want to make sure you get this model in particular, or one that's bigger than it, to make sure you have enough USB power for those devices. There are some smaller KVM units that are strictly for keyboard, mouse, monitor, and you can't really add anything else. So this particular model is the one that we love using. We are able to just mount them on the wall underneath here. You've got the KVM input here, and it just really cleans up what the underneath front of house looks like, right? So we got this so much space down here, and there's just so few cables. So we've got additional cables for like spare network, spare video cables here at front of house. Sometimes you might want to have a video input here at front of house. For someone to plop a laptop down on top here and be able to send video to the switcher to get to the screens. These are a lot of the little things that we think about as we're designing these projects that, you know, a lot of the things you might not really tend to think about them, but you have to when you're trying to run cable for everything and account for everything that needs to be here. And some cable management tips here, like these cables, these are the short ones that are just going up there. I could probably tuck these into a raceway. I really like these 2" by 2" raceways from Amazon, the black ones, and then these other small ones here that made the connection, you know, of these cables going down to power right there. I also really love our slanted monitor stands here. They can adjust if you need to, but it's great because as a volunteer, I can see what's going on in the room. I can see my workspace, and even when I'm sitting down, I'm not having to like look over an actual monitor. We've got the Logitech MX Keys keyboard and mice here on the nice Logitech desk pad right here. KVMs are also great for security factors, so that you don't have a bunch of actual computers sitting out here. For the most part, they just got monitors and keyboard and mice, right? You don't have a nice expensive Mac Mini or some powerful machine that you have to worry about, you know, just goes walking off or something like that, when everything is secured in the rack itself. Prior to this tech booth, they also had this older type of setup where we had like kind of the rolling door that went over everything to secure everything. And this just keeps it open, looking super clean and easy to access. We also have a little Netgear switch back here so we can easily tie into Dante. If you have a laptop running Dante virtual sound card, you can send audio to your mixing console right here. And of course, all these other computers can send audio to and from the sound console to the PA system over Dante with Dante virtual sound card. Here's our very simple broadcast video setup. So we've got the ATEM Constellation 1ME you guys saw in the rack. Here's ATEM control software right here. We've got the stream deck, so I can actually, switch between our angles. I could click on the software if I want. We've got that working together with DeckLink and the Pro Presenter, getting all of our computer graphics images into our video switcher here. And what I did too, what's cool about the Stream Deck is I can control our auxiliary video outputs that are going to the LED screens. So I can actually switch between computer graphics. So this is usually what Pro Presenter is showing up there, the stained glass image. Then I can click on a camera feed, or I can even click on specific program feeds. So now if I go back to my camera feed, you're actually seeing program here, not just the clean camera image. So you could overlay lyrics, or basically what they're seeing online could be seen in the room on the beautiful LED screens. The LED screen system that we deployed in this setup is incredible. We did this in partnership with Altitude LED. Their team did an amazing job on the rigging and install. It's very unique type of setup. So to learn more about this particular system, definitely go check out the case study video that we're making for the Altitude LED YouTube channel. I'll link that down below, and you'll learn about this entire system and how it's all configured to work with their video switcher. One of my favorite things about LED screens in a space like this is you see all the beautiful stained glass windows around me. And for some people, if we have this image up on the screen like we do now of the same stained glass, they might not even realize like where the stained glass stops and where the LED screens start. So to me, LED screens are kind of modern day stained glass, and I think this really visualizes that well. I took a photo with my phone of their stained glass that they have and did a tiny bit of editing, and then I just threw it into Pro Presenter, put it up on the screens, and now those screens really fit into the aesthetic of the space. So even if they're having an event in here and maybe they don't need screens at all, instead of having black screens, they could just turn on that image and it really blends in with the space. Once the video is switched for their live stream with the ATEM, we are using the USB output feature on the ATEM that is plugged into this broadcast computer and turns the ATEM video switcher into a video capture device. So that program feed becomes a video source, kind of like a webcam source for software like Wirecast. So this could be OBS, Wirecast, Ecamm, any type of streaming software you want to use. It could be another instance of Pro Presenter if they wanted to run that here. There's so many different ways to encode a video and send it online to your destinations. The clients wanted to use Wirecast, so we got that all set up for them. And this software does have quite a bit of capability built into it. You can pull in all sorts of different video sources, whether it's from a video capture device or NDI feeds or things like that. And because the computers are all on the same network, it's going to be easy for them to kind of build onto this as they wish. So the program feed comes in over video, and then we use Dante Virtual Sound Card on this computer to pull in the broadcast mix from the SQ7. So all of the syncing and combining of audio and video happens all in here within Wirecast. And you can see Luke built out those layers there earlier today, and it's really easy to curate this from the software.
So I initially found you guys on YouTube, as a lot of everybody does, watching in my free time, and I'm almost like a full-time volunteer here at the church. And I wanted to raise our excellence that we had at the church, improve a lot of quality that we had, and we had a lot of outdated equipment, and I saw a need, and so I volunteered for our church. And so when I found you guys, I felt like this was a great opportunity for small to medium-sized churches like ourselves to actually upgrade and do these things that we did this in the entire project. And it took a little bit of convincing to get this project running, as you guys know. In the beginning, we have the record for one of the longest times going through to get it approved. But then once we started rolling, I couldn't be happier with the project. So it was really multifaceted across audio, visual, and streaming. From the audio side of things, we had speakers that just simply weren't working. They were, one of them was broken, one was half working, and the front two were overpowered, and then we had downfills that were just crowding the space for sound coming through. We had to use floor monitors for our band, so that created a lot of excess volume. We tried to do a hodgepodge IEM mix with Audio Fusion, and it wasn't really working for us. And that kind of like made it worse for the stage noise and all of that kind of stuff. From a visual standpoint, from the screens, we had old projection screens. So like we were getting light bleed that was coming through. People couldn't really see what was happening up on the screens at all. We had the comment just the other day, it was like, oh, that's what that background looks like when we put these in, so that was awesome. And then from the streaming side, it just didn't sound great at all because we were having a lot of daisy chains, cables going through that weren't transitioning audio really well, and then our video quality was just not great at all. And so taking all of that and trying to raise it to the next level was really crucial for us because there was just a lot of equipment that was 20 to 30 years old that was just like, let's just fix it when it's broken. And we were at that point where everything just started breaking. And even like 2 or 3 weeks before you guys came out, like both of our projectors kind of were like, we're done, that's it.
And tell me about the reaction so far from the congregation, week to week. You know, Sunday services in here have been happening for a while now, since we deployed this system. So what's the response been like?
It's been overwhelming in gratitude. Our whole congregation has been amazed at the quality, at the audio that they can actually hear, because that was one of the other pain points, is that intelligibility of like the pastor speaking or the band just wasn't there. And they were amazed at like the clarity of sound that was coming through the speakers, the visual from the screens that they could see, and just how everything was neat and tidy and more efficient and less of a distraction. Because honestly, worship became a distraction with all of the different problems that we were having, and people couldn't actually focus on what is important, which is worshiping God. It's been a lot smoother than I expected. There have been some headaches where I've been trying to learn equipment because it's new, but it's honestly made our job a lot easier for troubleshooting. I've been able to kind of work it out on my own for the most part, except for calling you on Sundays every once in a while. But it's been amazing. I can't thank the Churchfront team enough because of how much it's made our job as volunteers easier to be able to operate everything, because that's what we wanted to for all of our volunteers. Is if this was super hard to operate, then that doesn't serve our church. Like, we're just all volunteers, we're not paid. We want to make our volunteers' jobs a lot easier, and that was one of our goals back here in doing what we did.
All right, this is the moment we've all waited for.
Waiting for us.
Pulling off the stickies. That's the face of a very excited tech director.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's it for this tech tour here at St. John's Lutheran Church. A huge thank you to them for entrusting this project to us here at Churchfront. Luke did an amazing job as a project lead on this, and we're just excited to be able to deploy a system that's going to serve them for many, many years into the future, for people to come here to encounter God's Word and the power of the Holy Spirit, and just keep transforming lives here in this community. Don't forget to check out all the links down below this video if you'd like to connect with our team, and I'll also try to make sure we link all of the different products and accessories that we used within this tech tour if you would like to deploy those at your church. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.